So if, like me, you've only been living here in Sweden for 3 or 4 years or less, you probably haven't missed the fact that there is something huge just about to happen around the corner. Yes, there's social media adverts plastered all over our feeds, there's posters all over town, the Winter Olympics are just around the corner, and as the Swedes are proud to tell you, they love all things winter sport. And if, like me, you're from abroad yourself, with the exception of a handful of countries, you've probably never watched the Winter Olympics before. In fact, when you think Olympics, the only thing you're thinking about is the triple jump, the track events, and everything else Summer Olympics. But winter sport is no laughing matter here in Sweden, so I thought I would put together this video as your one-stop guide to help get you ready for the next 3 weeks of small talk in the fika room. So consider this video your cheat sheet or your fast pass to making it look like you have at least some idea what's going on when the Winter Olympics get underway later this week. So watch along as over the next few minutes I'm going to guide you through some of the weird and wacky sports that are going to be on your TV screens over the next few weeks, as well as some of the Swedes to look out for that are participating in those events. By the end, you're going to be able to impress all of your Swedish colleagues by making it look like you have any idea what's going on. So let's kick off by getting to grips with some of the basics. So if you don't know already, the Winter Olympics 2022 gets underway this Friday in China, and over the next 3 weeks there's going to be a total of 109 different medals up for grabs across 15 different sports. And this time around there's a total of 7 entirely new events on the agenda, but we'll get more into that a little bit later. And as far as we know so far, 91 individual nations have qualified to be able to participate in this year's games. I say of course so far because there's this weird dreaded virus going around at the minute, and it's kind of having an impact on how many athletes actually making it to China safely and in a condition where they are allowed to participate. And why is this such a big deal to the Swedes, you ask? Well, this year Sweden is sending one of the world's biggest delegations. There will be 116 athletes representing this Scandinavian nation. To put that into perspective, my country, the UK, are sending about 55. Not to mention that the Swedes have set themselves extremely high expectations for this games. In fact, they're predicting that it's going to be their most successful winter games ever. And to put that into perspective, the last Winter Olympics in South Korea was one of the Swedes' best performances ever when they brought home a total of 7 gold medals. So they are expecting some big bananas this year. Now, as I mentioned earlier, shortly we'll be getting into some of the Swedes whose names you're going to want to have on the tip of your tongue in the fika room this year, the real ones to watch. But first, I want to dig into some of the weird and wacky sports that are going to be gracing your TV screens over the next 3 weeks. Because if, like me, this is going to be your first experience of the Winter Olympic Games, you probably think that this event is all about slalom skiing, cross-country skiing, hockey, and bobsleighing. Which, let's face it, we only know is a sport thanks to that epic classic film Cool Runnings. But let me tell you what, you guys, if you're flicking through your TV channels later this month and you come across the Winter Olympics, you are in for a treat because there are some real wacky highlights this year. The first of which is speed skating. And this one is exactly what it sounds like on the tin. It's people running on ice, because that sounds oh so safe. And at the Olympics this year there'll be 2 different varieties, long track and short track, the only difference of course being the distance, but the reality is this is a competitive race where people compete against each other to clear a distance of ice as quickly as possible. It's basically just a running event but on ice. And what makes this event even more comical to me is where it got its roots, because the first official documented speed skating event took place in the Netherlands, where of course they don't have the most reliable of winters. It's a bit like the UK, some years things freeze over, other years not so much. And the people there wanted to get out and about and get their skating on, but they couldn't really rely on the fact that the ice would withstand their weight, so they created this event where they had to get across the ice as quickly as possible to avoid being swallowed whole when the ice cracked. And now, you guys, it's an Olympic event. The second baffling event to keep an eye out for over the next few weeks is Luge. And I don't even know if I'm really saying that right, because the name gives nothing away. Well, what if I was to tell you that this is actually a sledding event where apparently people go down an icy slope, feet first, and use their calf muscles to control their direction. So I guess you could say that this is like bobsleighing, but without the bobsleigh, because it seems so sensible to throw yourself feet first down an icy slope going at 140 kilometers an hour without a custom-made vehicle to keep you safe. And if that last event has got your brain left scrambled, well then I couldn't do a video about the Winter Olympics without talking about the biathlon, because this is an event which has got every single foreigner that comes to Sweden baffled. And whilst you might not recognize it by the name biathlon alone, here in Sweden it gets the title withh, and it's exactly what it sounds like on the tin. It's skiing and rifle shooting combined into one sport. And again, is it just me that's noticing that the real competition at the Winter Olympics seems to be how life-threatening can we make the events and still get away with calling them a sport? And if you're not familiar with this event, basically what it is this cross-country trail where every so often you reach a shooting range, you have to get your rifle out and shoot a number of different targets. And basically every time you miss a target, you will either get some sort of distance or time penalty, which is of course used to define who the winner becomes. And at least in modern times, this sport is believed to come from an 18th century Norwegian military training exercise. Yes, you heard that right. And yes, it's now a sport somehow. But yet again, it's quite novel and entertaining to watch, so I understand why the Swedes are so gripped by this one. Now, whilst there's so many more weird and wonderful sports to look out for at the Winter Olympics, one final category that I didn't think I could end this video without mentioning is what I'm dubbing aerial gymnastics. And I'm using this as quite an open term to describe a range of events which involve jumping off some sort of slope and doing weird, crazy acrobatics in the air. The first of which is big air, which is a self-described high injury risk sport where the competitor rides skis down a ramp and performs aerial tricks after launching off. The better the tricks and the cleaner the landing, the more points you score. And then there's the mixed team aerials, a new event for this year, which as far as I can tell is based off of the same principle, except the team is made up of competitors of both genders, 3 in total, and they get points based on the combined performance of all 3 athletes. The problem with this one being, if any one of those athletes suffers a nasty fall, that automatically means that your team will not be getting a podium place, and at least one of you will be spending 2022 in a hospital bed. Oh no! And now that we got that out the way, I'm sure there's lots of you out there that are wondering which Swede should I be looking out for at this year's Olympics, and I'm glad you asked. And if I'm being completely honest with you, the answer to that question is less clear this year than usual, and the reason for that, of course, is that every athlete that is competing in China this year is up against a strict regime of testing requirements, so it's kind of unclear which ones of them will actually get to compete when their event day comes. For example, over just last weekend, it was reported that sadly Leo Johansson becomes the first Swede to test positive on arrival to China. That means his future in Team Sweden's Olympic Games group is looking less and less likely, only 2 weeks after last testing positive for the disease. So that in mind, take what I'm about to say with a pinch of salt, because none of us know which athletes will get to compete when the time comes, but at the moment, at this point in time when I'm filming, these are some of the Swedes that you're going to want to keep your eyes out for on your TV screens over the next few weeks. The first, of course, is Charlotte Kalla, who is a Swedish cross-country skier who will actually be returning in Beijing for her 4th Olympic Games off the back of 3 golds at the last 3 Winter Games. That puts her on par with Sweden's all-time greatest Olympians. Then you've got Stina Nilsson, who is a very interesting athlete in her own right, having won individual sprint gold in cross-country just 2 years ago, before deciding that that was clearly too simple a sport for her, so she switched it up and now she's back to compete under the biathlon instead. The third Swede making my must-watch list this year is Niels van der Poel, who set a new world mark over 5,000 meters at the speed skating back in December, so he'll definitely be one to watch if you can catch him before he blurs past your screen. And then we have to spare an extra special mention to Oscar Eriksson and Almida Deval, who are the first Swedes to taste the Olympic action this year. In fact, they will begin their campaign today against Team GB in the mixed curling. And I think it's fair to say that we already know who's getting thrashed in that matchup. So there you have it, you guys. That's my roundup of all the things weird and wonderful to watch out for this year at the Winter Olympic Games. Now, I really want to hear from you guys, so let me know down in the comment section down there. Which Swedes will you be watching out for this year? Will we be watching the games at all? How many medals do you think we can expect Team Sweden to be bringing home? I, for one, will definitely be back on this video in 3 weeks' time, scrolling through your comments to see which of you was the closest, and I would love to hear all of your recommendations and predictions. But with that said, we've reached the end of another video, so thank you so much for watching this one. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. Weekly videos from me at the minute, and I can't wait to see you guys all again next week. And then smash that like button if you haven't done so already to let me know you're enjoying this style of content. That's all I got to say for now though, so good luck Team GB and of course Team Sweden at the upcoming Winter Olympics. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. But until then, thank you and goodbye.